My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. I'm only here to even a score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. I'm down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we gon' up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we gon' up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 73. We are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESPN analyst and hoops player, an infamous rapper, a residential influencer and IG star, just shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. Remember to like and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and check out the 70-plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle, Big 12 Huddle, Fourth in Florida, and New Stream. All right, today we have a very different audience. It's just going to be me and Josh today. A lot of the guys are out. Roger's sick. A couple guys got hung up at work, but that's okay. We're going to keep on bringing you this podcast today, even though we're a little bit shorthanded. So with that being said, let me bring in my co-host, the only other person that is going to be joining us today, and that's Josh Lazar.
Man, just imagine if I decided, I'm a little tired. Let's just punt tonight. I mean, who would know what's going on in the tennis world at UCF? I mean, I don't know what's going on here. It's great.
That's a good point. I would guess I'd also be talking to myself, so I don't know how entertaining of a show that would be, although I have done some solo UCF podcasts before, not on this show. But anyways, luckily we have you, we have me, we got someone to bring the UCF news today.
That's true. That's true.
All right, so let's hop into it. I don't think this is going to be a super long show, Josh. I mean, there's not a ton of news, obviously.
Are you telling everyone to just stop listening and watching?
No, I'm telling them stay tuned.
This is only going to take an hour.
Right. No, I'm telling them stay tuned. But we're going to talk a little bit, starting with UCF football, and then go into UCF basketball and some of the other Olympic sports here. So with that being said, let's start with some UCF football. First of all, the transfer portal has, obviously kind of died down in recent weeks. But we have actually landed 2 new high school commits, believe it or not, and they're actually part of the 2025 class. So as you may recall, everyone that's listening, there is 2 signing periods now. Obviously, the main one is the quote unquote early signing day, which happens in December. And then you have the traditional, I guess we'll call it, National Signing Day, which is coming up here, I believe, in a couple of weeks. So UCF and Coach Frost were able to add 2 new guys to the mix, both part of the 2025 class. I'll just kind of get into it. First one may be on the all-name team, and that is offensive lineman Camp Lott. Maybe he camps a lot. I don't know, but that is a pretty cool name. This is a guy from Mississippi. He's 6'6", 245 pounds, was not ranked. And I'll just comment on that. At this point, the traditional National Signing Day that happens in late February, early March, whenever it is pretty much kind of left for just unsigned recruits. Not to downplay these guys. I'm sure they're talented and whatnot, but mostly every recruit that has offers and choices of where to go, they're going to sign during early signing day. That's become the primary signing day. This other one, like I said, is primarily for unsigned guys. It could also be guys that just wanted to wait and still have their pick of the litter of what schools they want to go to. But you're going to see a lot of guys that are maybe 2 stars or just unheralded guys that didn't get a ton of offers. That's kind of what we're seeing here with these 2 guys that Frost was able to verbally commit. So Camp Lott, he did have 4 FBS offers. They were all kind of G5s outside of UCF, of course. So this is a guy, adding to the offensive lineman, which, UCF needs. Obviously, UCF did sign 5 transfers on the offensive line, but high school, I think we only signed 1. And we saw a lot of guys graduate and or transfer from the O-line from last year's team. So this is a position of need for UCF. So Josh, have you looked in a little bit of Camp Lott? Have you seen any of his tape, or what are your thoughts here?
The truth be told, I have not, but what I am recognizing is that the only people we've heard of this week, or at least since the last time we recorded, are both on the O-line, and they're both like the O-line height and traditional weight, if you will, for anyone on the line or tackles, right? So to me, what I'm seeing is we need depth, and maybe they're amazing. Maybe we're diamond mining again. Maybe not. At this point, they're still high school students, right? They're probably going to grow, but I'm very, what's the best way I could put it? I'm excited to see that we're still trying to get high school talent and build them up. It's something Scott Frost did really good in his first time here, short time frame, but the people in that 2017 team, even the ones that were sophomores at that point, pretty darn good. So I'm excited to see a lot more of this O-line and D-line from the high school ranks that we can grow and build and train, and hopefully they stick around for a while. So haven't seen too much tape. That's more of a trade thing. But I'm excited to see that we are going more for the trenches, at least right now.
Yeah, and let's also not forget, because of the coaching transition from Malzahn to Frost, UCF had a very, very small high school class. Only 11 guys signed their letter of intent. I mean, 11 is a pretty small class. I mean, 15 is generally maybe the smallest you want to go quantity-wise. So 11, when you talk about all the decommits, I think at one point UCF had 18 or 19 in this class. So we had about 7 or 8 decommitments. So yeah, this class still needed just pure numbers. I mean, obviously UCF made up for it in the transfer portal, signing, 28, 29 guys now, but they needed some more high school guys. And it is good that we're able to use this second window, if you want to call it that, or second signing day to grab some more 2025 guys. So the first one, like I said, is Camp Lott, offensive lineman. And the second guy we got, I don't know if I'm saying this right, is Ryshawn McHaney. Like Josh alluded to, another guy, real big guy. I mean, we're really adding some beef on the line. This guy is 6'7", 265 pounds. So he may be rivaling Paul Rubel almost. If this guy, I mean, he's only 18. So maybe he grows another couple inches and he's 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". So big dude. This guy out of Indianapolis, Indiana, plays at Indianapolis Lutheran. Once again, unheralded, did not have any, he's not a star, doesn't have a 2-star, 3-star rating. He's just kind of not ranked by all the major outlets. Doesn't have a state ranking or anything like that. He did also have a couple offers. He had an offer from Army, Middle Tennessee State, and it does look like he had a official visit to Illinois. So he started to maybe get some a little bit more attention here as the months went by. Seems like he visited a couple other schools, but they were more, FCS schools like Indiana State and a couple other places. So, size-wise looks good. And like you said, Josh, Frost has gone diamond mining before and it's worked. Not every guy that Frost signed those 2, legendary years of UCF's golden era were, these high 4-star guys. In matter of fact, most of them were 3 stars, and you had a lot of guys that were low 3 stars, like an Adrian Killens, and some of these guys that didn't, they had offers, they were getting recruited, but they weren't like, what maybe we've come accustomed to with Malzahn, who had all these, huge booms, quote unquote, with 4-star guys. So McHaney, now UCF is up to 13 total commits. Obviously 11 have signed, and then these 2 O-linemen will, I would presume, sign here. Josh just let me know that it's the 5th. Wednesday is actually National Signing Day. So I would say look out on the next 2 days if we maybe, are able to grab a couple more guys. At
Pause.
the very least, we did add 2 more. Huh?
You'll see it
Is that
on
a beep?
playback.
Okay. Yeah, so hopefully grab a couple more commits here over the next 2 days. And that gives us now with these 2 offensive linemen, now we actually have 4 O-line in this class. Jack has Joyner, who had already obviously signed, and then LaParca Langston. So 4 offensive line actually makes it the most common position that we got out of any. It was offensive lineman and wide receiver were the 2 most, or the most quantity-wise positions that we signed in this 2025 class. So, with these 2 additions, at least, adds a little bit more beef, adds a little more quantity to the class. I don't know if it's going to do anything for the ranking when both guys are not obviously, don't have a star rating at all. UCF's class actually ranked number 71 according to Rivals. So it wasn't the best on paper, but I think we did get some really quality guys, and to be able to land 2 more offensive linemen who look college ready, at least, physically wise, I think is a win for UCF.
Yeah. We need people, man. We just need people. We didn't, we lose like 65 people total between seniors and name, image, and likeness, and no longer on the team and transfer portal. I mean, we need people on the team. And we need to figure out what that first depth is from starters to seconds and maybe grabbing, getting into thirds, because I don't know. We don't know exactly where we're going to be this year. I'm still slightly cautiously optimistic. And I don't know if we're going to really even get to this, but that's kind of why I'm kind of sad we're not going to have a spring game this year. I don't know if that's not necessarily on our notes, but we
could talk about it.
Yeah, we talk about it. Like, I kind of like having spring games, even though I understand it's a glorified practice. And I feel like it sounds like we're going to have more potentially open practices to people who aren't in the shareholder society. So that might be nice. I kind of do miss having a spring game, but the truth be told, everything from Terry Mahajer was saying is like, it's basically you're advertising your team to the people who are scouting them for name, image, and likeness. I'm like, yeah, kind of works. That happened last year with the wide receiver, if I remember correctly. They I forgot his name off the top of my head. A gentleman from Oklahoma, right after
Jalen Robinson.
Yeah.
That was like 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago.
And then didn't do too much the last couple of years or so. So maybe it's okay.
And that'd be a mistake for him.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But maybe in hindsight, with what was going on with Gus, who knows? But what do you think about the idea of no spring game this year?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I'm actually glad you brought that up. I did forget to put that in the notes, but I disagree with what everyone's been saying about it in the respect of the reason why we're not having it. First of all, I said this in the chat that that it's just another tradition that's been stripped away with this new college football era. And I know that's becoming more and more prevalent, where these regionality and all these different things are being stripped away with how college football is transforming. But I think you should have a spring game. It's tradition. Here's my thought on it becomes an open audition. First of all, I don't really see a glorified scrimmage where first teamers are playing second teamers and even third teamers to some degree is something that's going to be like, oh, if a team like whatever, Ohio State or whomever sees a UCF player that they want, I don't think the scrimmage is going to put it over the top, in my personal opinion. Like, what is one tiny little scrimmage where they maybe don't even play the full game really going to do for their tape? I'm not saying it can't help, but I don't know, like someone like Jalen Robinson, if he wanted to leave and other teams wanted to pluck him, it was going to happen regardless of the spring game or not. I mean, do you like, if a guy is a freshman and never has no tape, is one spring game really going to move the needle for another team? Like, oh my God, I got to have that guy. At the end of the day, you have his high school tape. And if they are a guy that's played, actual field time in a college game, you have real game tape to go off of. So I just don't see how it becomes that. And if you're that worried about it, then I don't know, sit certain guys or don't open up the playbook book, which I would assume it's already not. I just think there's way
Yeah.
around that. That to me just feels like a lazy excuse. Like, oh, you'll get guys plucked. Look, if a school comes with a bag and a player wants to leave, it's allowed now. Anything could happen. So, I just don't see the scrimmage as a game that really does that for them. At the end of the day, like someone wants John Walker, they can look at his freshman tape, they can look at his high school tape, and if they want to come offer him $600,000, $1 million, then they're going to do that. And if he wants to leave, he's going to leave. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Well, every tradition is basically being broken at this point. I mean, it's who knows who we're going to play on Black Friday this year. It's definitely not the Cows, but that's for a few other reasons as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, what was it? It was Utah this year, right? So
I think if do you want to get in the schedule a little bit, because there's by the time people are well, if you're live, if you're hanging out with us live, then this is going to be for tomorrow. But if you're listening in post, you might even have it by that point. The schedule is probably is coming out actually at 10 a.m. Central.
When's it supposed to come out?
It's coming out tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern, because as Alan said in our text talk, everything's in Eastern. But that's coming out tomorrow. It's going to be broadcast on True TV and ESPN U plus something. I don't know. I saw some things online by Ross Dellinger. Yeah, for the first time in his history. This is from Ross Dellinger on Twitter. I'm not going to go there. The Big 12 will reveal a schedule with an on-air broadcast on several of the expanded media platforms. The show will air at 10 a.m. Central, which is really 11
This
Eastern.
For all teams or just UCF, you're saying?
For Big 12. It's all Big 12. It's on ESPNU, FS2, True TV, and stream live on Max and ESPN Plus. We're doing it big. We're doing it big.
So I guess really, I mean, we know who we're playing. It's just more the order of the games, and what maybe
Correct.
Not even the times. It's just what is it?
Yeah. It's the well, I don't even know if it's all times. It's the dates, and
it's the dates and the order of the games, essentially.
Correct. Especially with the where the dates in the order, and specifically when the buys are too, because it's allegedly. So this is what I've seen online so far. So allegedly, we're gonna have allegedly we're gonna start off with Jacksonville State and North Carolina A&T, and then get a bye before.
Usual. Okay.
Yeah, but might have a bye before we go to the Tar Heels are back here in Orlando. Maybe it's worthwhile to get more practice in, but I really wouldn't. I'd prefer a bye a little late. 2 buys later in.
I was gonna say, well, that might mean we probably have more than one buy this year. That means
it's 2 buys this year. It should be 2 buys this year.
Okay.
So
all right.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things we do know and a couple of rumors. What we do know, I'll say allegedly, from Brett Murphy on Twitter, is that West Virginia Rich Rodriguez is at UCF and Scott Frost. So that kind of is interesting. I wonder if they were. No, I don't think Rich Rod was there when Scott Frost was. That was way back in the day. But that's on October 18th. Yeah, so we know where that is. We also, I'll say allegedly, we might be. We're playing Baylor and Waco. And allegedly, that game might be near Halloween. I think was a November 1st game. Allegedly. So everyone who wants to see Joanna Gaines and all of that fun stuff will be out there. And the other one that we've heard two rumors. One rumor is that the Houston game is at FBC Mortgage Stadium, and that allegedly would be the space game. Makes sense. That's Houston and Purdue and us all want to claim space because controls and launches are in separate places, and Purdue just puts out a bunch of astronauts and has pretty darn good engineering school to be honest. So that's an interesting one. And this is the one that I have heard, and I want to get your feedback on this. Allegedly, we are going to be playing on Black Friday or on Saturday our Thanksgiving game again versus a Utah-based school, and we're going to be going to Provo for Friday or Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Our
Allegedly.
Black Friday game is, you're saying on the road allegedly against BYU.
Yeah, that's allegedly. Well, by the time you're watching this, if you're not live, you'll probably know this, and I'm guessing I've seen it enough places, allegedly. So, what do you think if that's the game?
The Black Friday game to me now, I mean, it's cool that we continue to play on Black Friday as opposed to, obviously there's still plenty of teams that play on Saturdays still, that Thanksgiving weekend. But I don't know, it just lost the meaning. I mean, that used to be every year USF without fail. To me, okay, we play Utah, we play BYU. There's no rivalry there. There's no regionality there. To me, it's just like whatever. It's just another game to me at that point. It doesn't really hold meaning like it used to. I mean, if anything, if I would say it's not the same, but I would rather play Cincy or Houston on Black Friday because there's the familiarity there. There's a rivalry of, I won't call it as strong as USF's was, or, any other huge rivalry in college football, but at least there's the familiarity where we played both of those teams at least 7-8 times in our history. So to play one of them would be kind of cool. Stadiums that both teams are very familiar with. So playing BYU, going all the way to Provo on that, I mean, I'm just kind of neutral toward it. Doesn't really, to me, it just feels like another game.
Yeah, and it's interesting because BYU is becoming a thorn in our side, and they might use this to pivot, right? Yeah. BYU has been a thorn in our side for a little while. Like we won up there in football, we won up there in 2014 in a tight game. Mm-hmm. We only won by one score, and then I think we beat them. They beat us before that. Back in 2011, right? That was with George O'Leary and Bronco Mendenhall. Man, that's old school, and that was still a 1-point game. It was close, and then they've
beaten us ever since.
Yeah, and then they've pretty much beaten us pretty darn good each time on 20. Well, 2020 was a weird year. Yeah, they beat us, but it was a weird year. And in last year, it. As the academic success partner of the game, that was not a fun game to be at. Other than that, other than what's on the big screen. So I'm trying to get the basketball history too.
They've beaten us. It feels like, at least since we both joined the conference.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm trying to see if I can research that, but it's, I'm not saying it's a rivalry yet, but it is typically fun games to play, and it's not like when we're in Orlando, some people tend to forget. I think we're the second largest Mormon population outside of Utah in Florida. In Orlando, it's big. When I went to the game with my daughter, so that was fun. I dropped some language. It was not good. The refs deserved it though. They had a tailgate out near the baseball lot, and they took over the entire grass area. I think either behind the baseball stadium, somewhere in the baseball stadium. My seatmate was talking to me about it, and they just had a huge alumni club. They took over the arena. They took over but they were 1,000 people there probably for both football and baseball. And yes, I would love to sell out our stadiums and things like that, and not have them take over, but we're not at that point yet. And to be frank, it's kind of nice. It's nice to beat them when that happens, yet we haven't done that at home yet. So I can't wait for that day. So I think we should start talking about the fun with basketball at this point.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, I'll just say one more thing on BYU is their fans travel extremely well. I mean, you're talking about, it's like the Boca Raton Bowl. I was there because I live in South Florida. That was the only game I went to that year because COVID. And
fun.
And to travel from Utah across country to Boca Raton, Florida for a meaningless Boca Raton Bowl during COVID, I mean, they must have had, I would venture to say probably about 40% of the fan base there. And we're talking a cross-country trip during COVID for a meaningless game. So their fans are legit. I'll give them that. But yeah, like you said, it would be nice to, beat them. A couple other things on the schedule I'll just comment is, what I look at in the schedule, what I'm looking to see really is the home road split, and just in terms of how many home games do we have in a row, how many road games do we have in a row. Like in recent seasons, there's been seasons where we haven't even had 2 road games in a row. There's been seasons where it's been like home road, home road, home road. So it'd be interesting to see, do we have any nice long home stands? Like, obviously you talk about Jacksonville State, North Carolina, AT, and North Carolina. We may start off the year. Most likely will, unless North Carolina gets slotted, like kind of how, if it gets maybe after, I don't know, one of the conference road games, and then we go back out of conference. I would presume we would get 3 straight home games to start the year. But then it'll be interesting when you talk about conference play, is how many in a row do we have at home? How many in a row do we have at road? And then I also like to see is where are those bye weeks? You alluded to one of them maybe right after week 2, but it'll be interesting to see where's that second one. Is it, kind of mid-season? Is it towards the end? This year they were pretty, they're broken up kind of towards the beginning and then towards the end of the year. So it'll be interesting to see that, and it'll just be interesting to see, how tough are the road trips? So if we get, 2 or 3 road games in a row, is it the toughest road games back to back, or is it like, maybe one of the what's perceived to be one of the weaker opponents and then one of the stronger ones? So I'm excited to see that, because sometimes you can kind of point to like, okay, that's a super tough stretch that's going to be really hard to get, even maybe one win. But you like to maybe see some of the games where the quote unquote easier opponents maybe get broken or be in between some of the harder games, so you get a little bit of a break there. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So that's the schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that?
I'm excited to see the schedule and and do a little analysis on it. We'll see how close we were next week.
Yeah. All right. So that's UCF football. Obviously not a ton of news there. Let's get into UCF basketball. Tough week since the last time you guys saw us. We went 0-2 in the last week, and I would say really dropped 2 nail biters, 2 heartbreakers, starting with Kansas. That was a game on the road. Especially after how bad they crushed us at home by the largest UCF loss in basketball history. To come back and play on the road like that, where we essentially had the lead for large portions of the game. It was a small lead, don't get me wrong, but we were very much in that game and really had them on the ropes the entire game. It wasn't until this last few minutes where Kansas really pulled away. We ended up losing by 4, 91-87, and we were playing good. They were turning the ball over like crazy. Kansas was. We had a lot of points off of turnovers, and you had another just phenomenal game from Keyshawn Hall, who had 34 points and 7 boards. 4 guys that were in double digits. Darius Johnson had 19. Theum had 17. Jordan Ivy Curry had 10. To me, the biggest issue was the bench. The UCS bench only had 2 points. That was a big part of it. Obviously we got outshot 44% to 39%. I think the biggest difference maker was probably Kansas shot nearly 50% from beyond the arc, and we still shot 39%, which is not bad as a team, from deep. But that was probably the difference in the game. We just could not stop them from deep. And, on top of that, they also out-rebounded us 48-36, which isn't a big surprise there. They got their points in the paint, and they got their, they got us on the glass. But, what kept being said, I noticed by the announcers on TV, was UCF's game plan was to basically just shoot lights out from beyond the arc. And it was working for quite some time. We started out real hot from 3, then kind of tallied off. But then, middle of the second half, we were starting to hit it again. It's just, but the problem was Kansas was too. It's very hard to win a game if your opponent is going to shoot nearly 50% from 3. You think about it. If they would have even shot 40%, which is still good, we probably win that game, no problem. So it was a tough loss, but we did hang tough.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's one of those, Darn it. And the problem is we've had a lot of those games in the middle of the year when we're opening up this year and you know, the hindsight's 2020 when we're opening up this year and we're beating Texas A&M, right? And we are beating Texas Tech. We are well, that's earlier in the year. We don't realize until later how good these games are. And you never know how games will turn out. Let's just right now we are live and Kansas is beating Iowa State 35-19 at the half.
Iowa State's
Right?
number 3.
Iowa State's now number 8 because they dropped one. Kansas is
Oh.
16th, but still, like that's what I'm saying. Like this is a really really good conference. That's why you see in a lot of these who's in who's out, where you have anywhere between 8 and 9 teams that are in, including UCF and lots of places. But that Texas A&M win is looking really good, like one of the better, one of the better wins in the nation. When we're talking about this in the beginning of the year, you know, we're saying this is not forget a good game. This is a significant win, and it's not like Texas A&M was doing pretty good in that game, right? We had to come back to win it. And what did they lose? 3 other games, I think, like that. 4 other games, and the SEC is just bonkers right now. So that's
9 ranked teams, I think.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and that's kind of the, I'd say, reshaping of what basketball is. Like the ACC has maybe 4 or 5 good teams, which is weird, but they have 4 or 5 good teams that right, and the SEC is you know, they had that in Texas and Oklahoma. Texas always typically good. Oklahoma is, you know, we could probably beat them at this point, but you're talking Texas A&M is the 4th team in that conference. The 4th team in the conference at 6-3, which is just Mississippi State is 4-5 in the conference, 16-6 overall, and 22nd in the nation. This is what's going on in the SEC. So that Texas A&M game, they've lost 5 games. We're one of them, and it's probably the one that probably the bad losses is probably going to be that, and we're not a bad team. So, well, not bad losses. We're not like a quad 3 or 4, obviously, but this is what we see, right? This is the season. We have these really good wins, that road win at Texas Tech, and we have this, right? You have the Arizona wasn't going to happen, but the Houston game, like, come on.
We're right there.
Game, we're right there. The Kansas game, right there. The BYU game. If we didn't play without Hall for like an entire half, basically, after 2 ticky-tack fouls, and the Tech is the Tech, and we didn't play with Darius Johnson after, again, well, 2 ticky-tack, but it looked like DJ's something was going on there because he was frustrated in that second half, and I think a lot of it was that the refs were swallowing the whistle sometimes and letting BYU get away with anything, and number 15 was shooting his brains out anytime he got the ball anywhere under 3. It was a very winnable game. And if we had our full complement of team the entire way, I think we win it. But it was interesting because we saw Nils was in there for a bit. Hendricks was in there for a little bit when Hall was out. And you can see where Nils's minutes have gone. He did pretty decent when he was out there, pretty decent on defense. His shot selection was pretty good, but Hall took all his minutes basically. So we're in this like stage of our basketball schedule where we hit one of those. We get BYU, we get Kansas, we get Houston. We're not on the bubble. and we're just not there yet. And we gotta keep winning. There's just some games we can't lose at this point.
Right. There's no room for error anymore. I mean, it's so frustrating because, look, we have gotten the big win, like you said, Texas Tech and then obviously A&M were big wins for us. But these conference games against really good opponents like Kansas, like Houston, I keep saying we're right there. Like one more thing bounces our way, we win. I mean, we could have potentially won the Houston and Kansas game, and sitting here right now we'd be 6-4 with basically 3 amazing ranked wins where we're almost a lock to make the tournament. It's frustrating because we're right there. But the great thing I've seen about this basketball team this year, even more so than last year, and I know we pulled off some great upsets last year, the only blowout this year has been the Kansas game. Every other game we have been game. We look like we are in it. We look like we are just as good. Yeah, they may have a couple more, they have more depth than us. There's no doubt about it. Our, after our top 5, top 6, it kind of falls off pretty bad. But in general, we're in every single of these games where we either mount an early lead or we are coming back and we're in it for 90% of the game. It's just been these, these last couple minutes. There's been some poor foul calls, I will say. But like you said, we just hit that stretch where we had Iowa State, Kansas, Houston. Now the schedule does ease up. We have a couple, like 1 or 2 real tough games left, but the path to 20 wins is still there. Do we need to go almost perfect the rest of the way? Kind of. I think we got to go whatever it is. We have what do we have now? We are at 13 wins, I believe.
Yeah.
We're 13 and 8.
Us, we're 13 and 8, and I think we have 10 games left.
Okay, so 7 and 3 is more than doable when you look at the schedule. A lot of the teams that are left are not. They're the more in the bottom half of the Big 12. So and there's home games. There's a very good chance that we could do it. But the margin for error has decreased with obviously, dropping some of these games that we should have won. Maybe from the onset, you didn't think because you're playing the ranked Houston, the ranked Kansas. But when you're in the game, like, oh crap, we should have won these games. That Kansas game felt like we never had full control, but neither did they. So it felt like we could have won that game. Same with Houston. Unfortunately, the ball just didn't bounce our way. Speaking of that, that BYU game, which we alluded to, so UCF unfortunately also drops that game on Saturday. They lose 81-75 at home. That was another back and forth game. BYU for the most part had, I would say was semi in control of that game, but it was never got out of hand. And Keyshawn Hall once again led the way, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Thiem had 17 and 6. Darius had 16. Jordan Ivy Curry had 14. And I mean, you look at it again, it feels like, I know Ben could probably talk, maybe I'm sure there's more than meets the eye and there's more than what I'm just saying here. But when you look at the shooting again, I mean, BYU shot 43% from 3. Overall, they shot 48%. I just don't, defensively, it just doesn't feel like there's a path to winning when your opponent is knocking down 43% of their threes. I mean, you've got to guard the perimeter better.
And most of them were a smidge of dribble, pass off, shoot. Like they were not wide open. Like a couple of times we were wide open. There was some contest, but it wasn't like hand in the face as they're going up. They are very good at that. Maybe it was our defense that made them look good, but I don't think so. Like there's in transition, it was almost all positions from 1 to 5. I think even maybe 1 to 4 per se, but it was purposeful. The thing that I found most impressive was their ball movement. The ball movement was very crisp across the board all the time. And the only time it wasn't was when we scored. We had a little bit of press. It might have been just like one person, but it wasn't a real press. It was just like a show of a press. Or we had a real press. When those two things were happening, when they got across the line at like 22, 23 seconds, their rhythm was off. It was way off. And that was the stretch in the first half where we went, and we pushed it. We got to 8 or 9, and we were like, this is it. And it was when some of those runs came in and we just couldn't push back far enough because either Hall wasn't there. Actually, we pushed while Hall was off the court. A big thing I think was when DJ got out at like the 14-minute mark or something when he got to his fourth foul. And we were already in the middle of a run. We were talking about, or I was talking about in text talks. I wasn't alone though. When that run came, we just couldn't push back. And, I think Dior Johnson is very helpful in the team and Nils as well. But when those two are pushing up and where was Mikey Williams? That actually is a good point. I wonder if something was up with Mikey if he was sick, because I just thought about that. Usually Mikey was the first off the bench. So maybe he's too. There's been some stuff going through the team. But Dior and when Dior and Nils are taking up the ball, it's just a different team. Typically, so if they're taking up the ball and DJ didn't rotate to the 2, if it's Nils at the 1 and DJ at the 2, it's still a little different, and that's just kind of where we're at. That's the team, and unfortunately, I didn't check exactly the box on that, but I would be shocked if we had Hall for over 25 minutes or DJ for about the same.
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out right now, and that's a big deal on this team. And we still were darn close most of the way.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, all that factors into it. And, I think you got to find a way to guard the perimeter better. I mean, I know, like you said, some of them may have been contested shots, but you see it. But you see it, whether it's in the NBA or it's in college, if a team's going to shoot 40+% from beyond the arc, you're probably going to lose the game unless you're just out shooting them. I mean, that would actually be a good stat of the day thing. I should look and say, how many games in our opponents, the last, whatever, you could take any sample size, 2 years, 3 years, where, our opponent shot 40+%. Did we win those games? It's going to be low. It's going to be very low. And when you talk about on top of that, generally in these games that we're talking about, we've lost the Houstons, the BYUs, the Kansas. We got out rebounded. We lost the points in the paint battle, and we got outshot. But the crazy thing is, like you said, we're still in the game. We are still, I mean, Kansas, we had a halftime lead in that game. BYU, I don't think we fell down by more than 9 in that game. And then, the other game, a Houston game too, we pretty much had a lead for a solid portion of that game, despite all of the numbers kind of going against us.
Yeah. And we were up by 2 at BYU, and it felt like we were just holding on to that too. But yeah, like Keyshawn Hall for 26 minutes got 20 in because and this was kind of, I'm sure it was purposeful to get him started in the second half, but it felt like they were forcing the ball to him in the first part of that second half, and that's when BYU went from down up 2 to down 6 or 8. 6-ish pretty quickly. They went on, I think, a 10-0 run between the two halves. And I feel like that was, I get it. You want to get them in rhythm. You want to get them in the game. Felt so forced and a lot of ISO, which is, what he does. But those not dropping, I'm not going to look at the game tracker, but that was a really pivotal piece. I said in our internal chat, hey, this is the run we need to do something about, and it just was not happening. And we got it back to 4, we got it back to 2, and we just couldn't get it past. So like when Darius was at 30 minutes, Keyshawn was at 26, Nils was at 17, right? So that's, and again, it wasn't bad. Decently enough, he hit 0 3-pointers, and that's what he's usually keyed in on. But
right,
it's just been a type of game, and we can't have, we are out of our games for the rest of the year. We need to get 7 more wins, maybe 6 more if one of those are Iowa State. I mean,
I think 6 puts us right now. We're on the bubble. I haven't checked since the BYU loss, but after the Kansas loss, I looked at multiple things, KenPom. I looked at even just random articles, published by ESPN, CBS Sports, and everyone has us like in the first 4 out or last one in. That's where we are. Yeah. So we're truly a bubble team right now. Either way, even I think with the BYU loss. So if they can get, I think, you talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, not 9 games left. If you can go 6-3, 7-2, I'm not going to say it's a lock, but I think you're in real good shape to be one of those last teams in. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think if we get to 20, we're good. I think it really depends on what happens in the tournament. I really hope we get at least 6 wins, maybe 7, and get 1 in the tournament. If we could do that, I feel comfortable. But it all depends on if, like, Drake doesn't get their automatic seed, or Jacksonville State. If some of these other teams that, if the Green Wave gets the Americans slot, not the Memphis Tigers, right?
Right.
Those are things that I don't want to be hoping that like Northern Colorado actually no, it's not like that. Really, like Northern Texas is a great one. If North Texas wins the American and gets their bid, Memphis is making it in.
Right.
So,
right. You got to hope that Memphis
it's like
the
that
tournament.
type of stuff. Yeah, correct.
Well,
there's little things here and there, but that's I don't want to be, if we get to 20 wins or we beat Iowa State and get to 19, I feel like we're not going to be worried as much, but we'll see what happens. There's 10 more games to play, and a good amount of them are in Orlando. There's still, I think, 4 or 5 left, if I'm not mistaken.
We have 5 in Orlando and 5 on the road, so it's a split there, 5 and 5. And I'll say this too: the only ranked opponent left is Iowa State, and it is at home, which obviously still a tough game. But every other opponent is definitely the weaker teams within the conference: Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Kansas State, teams like, we play Oklahoma State twice. I mean, teams like this that are in the bottom half. I would say Baylor is still a tough game, especially on the road. They were ranked up at multiple points this year. But next up, you have Cincinnati. That's this Wednesday. It is at home. That game is actually not on ESPN Plus. It's on CBS Sports Network. So if you don't have ESPN Plus, you can watch this game. So we got 5 at home, 5 on the road. It's pretty much the most in a row on the road is 2. We have a Colorado, Oklahoma State back-to-back. Every other, and then we have 2 home games also mixed in there in a row. But every other is kind of just goes back and forth between home and away. So 10 to go. Only 1 ranked opponent left. Like Josh and I have been saying, if we can get to 7-3, maybe even 6-4 in these last 10. Remember, if we get 6 more wins, that gives us 10 conference wins. And why that is important, I looked. Every single Big 12 team last year that had at least double-digit conference wins was in the tournament. Now, granted, the Big 12 had 8 tournament teams last year, which is a lot, and they're probably not going to get 8 again this year, but maybe close. But I think if you get 10 Big 12 wins, you are in very good shape to likely make it into the tournament, especially then if you happen to get 1, maybe 2 more in the conference tournament, then you're golden. So it's not going to take an insane effort for UCF to get in. If they can just win the games they're supposed to, and I would say outside of Baylor and Iowa State, I wouldn't be surprised if they're favored in mostly all of these games.
Probably. And let's be honest, we are currently 9th in the conference. We're towards the bottom of the conference too, right? Because we have a lot of games, right?
Correct.
But still, I think there's some optimism to be had. And it's not like last year where we're like just hoping we get 2 or 3 wins, right? We're not that this year, which is pretty amazing.
I agree. It's a big improvement from last year.
I'm excited to see what happens and to see where this goes.
Yeah, and final thing, I'll say UCF basketball. We have Cincinnati, like I said, next. Cincinnati is on a 4-game losing streak right now, and they've lost to Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, West Virginia, 4 in a row. So now is the time to get them. I mean, they're kind of reeling right now, and on top of that, before that 4-game losing streak, they had won 2, but then they lost 4 before that in a row. So they've lost 8 of their last 10 games. So I would say that they're reeling right now. This should be a game we win at home. They have 2 conference wins. They're 2-8 in the Big 12, 12-9 overall. So this should be a game that UCF can win. I don't think the spread on that one has come out yet from what I've seen, but if we look here at the matchup predictor by ESPN's FPI, UCF has a 51.6% and Cincy 48. So I guess they're calling it kind of almost even, but either way, UCF will be favored in this game. And if a team's lost 8 of the last 10, you got to strike and kind of get them while they're down. So yeah, so we'll see what happens here with UCF. One other thing I also want to say, Keyshawn Hall, I had to say this. I was just looking at this because I'm on the ESPN schedule here. So Keyshawn Hall has led UCF in scoring in 6 of their last 8 games. So he's doing really well right now. And not only in scoring, he's actually led the team in rebounding the last 3 games in a row, 4 of the last 5. And then before that, he led them in 3 other games. Basically since conference play has started, he's led UCF in rebounding in every game besides 3, which I would have not guessed that. I would have thought it'd been Thiem or JJ Taylor. I don't know, but that's interesting to see that. So, I mean, he's just all around been fantastic. His last 3 scored 20, 34, 26. He also had that 40 burger in there and had another game of 22 against Arizona. So kudos to Keyshawn Hall for really being UCF's best transfer. What a pickup by Johnny.
Yeah, I agree. And we're hoping to see more out of all of them because we need we absolutely need some wins.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's UCF basketball. I guess we'll move on here. And well, I guess it goes right into my oxymoronic stat of the week, which I could have maybe used that Keyshawn Hall stat there, but I did get something that I was looking at just because it became very noticeable to me with UCF basketball how much they're getting out rebounded and just losing just the front court seems to kind of lose a lot of battles recently. And but the ironic part is it's not necessarily leading to losses, but it is interesting to see that UCF since conference play started, so in the 10 conference games that we've had, we've been out rebounded 8 of those 10 games, and we've lost the points in the paint battle also 8 of those 10 games. And remember, we've won 4 of those games. So just because we get out rebounded and we don't win the points in the paint battle doesn't mean we're necessarily losing. But I did find that interesting that UCF has been consistently getting outboarded and losing the paint battle, which we know the front court was one of the weaker parts of UCF. We know we stocked up our guards in the transfer portal in the offseason, but it's funny because you'd like to point to that, like, oh, that's why they're losing, but it's really not that. I think it's just when you pair that also with the shooting sprees that some of our opponents have been on, that's obviously not a recipe for success. But in some of these cases, like, I mean, granted, this was a blowout, but Kansas won the point in the paint battle 62-10, which is kind of insane to see. And you're seeing quite a lot of games like that where, like, even against Kansas this last game, we got out rebounded by 12, lost the points in the paint battle by double digits. So not a positive, oxymoronic side of the week, but oxymoronic because it's not always leading to the loss. Like TCU, we out rebounded and we beat them by 27 points. So take that how you will, but just an interesting stat that I found interesting, at least. All right, Josh, what do you have for us for your sometimes funny fact of the week?
I really don't have too much, but I'll make it pretty quick. So, we've played Baylor a couple of times in a couple of sports, sometimes more famously like 2014, sometimes a little less famously in 2024. So I have a question for you. How many times has UCF played Baylor in men's basketball ever?
Okay, so that would be not okay. We haven't played them yet this year. So prior to this year, well, I'm going to say last year we probably played them once. I mean, we definitely played them once. So I don't think it was twice last year. I think it was once. Prior to that in basketball, geez, I'll guess one other time. So 2 total times.
That would be incorrect. We've only played them last year for the first time ever, and unfortunately,
Really?
we did lose, but it wasn't that bad. It was only 77-69, and
What
we
year
were
was
up.
oh, it was last year. It was the only other time, right? Okay.
Yeah. The last matchup was the first matchup in January 31st, and just like has happened many times this year, we were winning at the half and lost afterwards. So yeah, that's that. I was gonna do some like Cincinnati history, but that's Cincinnati history is not good. It's yeah,
Fair
it's
enough.
not good. So
Fair enough.
let's hope let's hope that we get into a better streak this year, because we have, I will say, we have beat them the last 4 times we've played them, so that's good.
That is good.
Oh, sorry. I I'm looking at the wrong site. We've lost the last 4 times we played. Last time we
I was going to say, I was like,
62. No, but they've all been pretty close. I will say this: they've all been like within like 11 points, 2 points. But no. The last time we beat them was in 2022 in Orlando by 14. So hopefully, I thought it was on the UCF website. I was like, yeah, that looks good. No, we haven't won in a while. So let's flip both of those scripts in this coming week.
all right, well, let's flip those scripts as right. Josh, final kind of thing we have now is the quick update on other sports I do not watch. Why don't you get into that? I know you put this together and highlighted by women's basketball with a conference win. So why don't you get into that?
Sure. So if I had a little box over here, if I was doing live mixing, I'd throw the Hallelujah Chorus by Handel on here. The women's basketball team won a conference game, and you know what it took? A Houston team who was 1-8 and only had 6 women who can play. But
Oh,
we
wow.
won 70-56. Yeah, if we didn't win that game, coach probably would be fired that day.
True.
We are now 1-9, and so is Houston after beating them. So I feel like if we both lose out in the conference, we're not going to be the worst in the conference this year. Next up, it's sad. It's sobering. It's what it is. We know the reality. There's a lot of women missing from this team. It's just not. People are hurt. It's not good. It's not good. We are going to on our Utah road trip. So we're going to start off in Provo, probably flying into Salt Lake, driving down I-15 to Provo on February 5th at 9 p.m., going back up I-15 to Salt Lake City to play Utah for that double dip. And that game versus Utah is February 8th at 3:30 p.m. And at some point, I might have to move all of the tennis teams above women's basketball, but we've been doing this for the last couple of weeks, so we're going to keep that up. There's no tennis. Oh, that should be a fun stat. Alan, you don't watch these sports. Has either the men's or the women's tennis team lost a game, like an overall match this year?
I have no idea. I'm going to go with no, just because of how you said it.
Yeah, that's true. We have not lost we've lost a game, but we haven't lost a match this entire year. Between the two teams, we are 12-0. The women's tennis team beat FIU.
Are they ranked?
The women's team is not ranked, and I feel like they may be in the near future. They are 4-0, probably because the ITA. There was an ITA tournament in LA a couple weeks back. Our team didn't go out there because of the fires and things like that. We understand the tournament still went on, but there's all kinds of, I don't know if there's other reasons, but we did not attend, and we would have been playing some teams that are probably higher ranked, so it might have helped, but we didn't. So right now we're 4-0. Beat FIU 4-1 last Sunday during Space Game number 1 at home, and now we take on the Cows in Tampa on February 9th at 12 p.m. Now, the men's tennis team is ranked. They are number 22, and they also beat the Cows on Monday, which we always like. That was 4-3. We are live, so that's today, again, in post. sometime earlier this week. They have now the best start in program history at 8-0. And I don't know if there's even a War on I-4 trophy anymore. I don't know if we do any of that stuff. I think it's all gone. I think we won the last 3 or 4, one of them. And it's unfortunate, but it's a whole nother story. Up next is Miami on Friday, February 7th at noon, and Sunday at FAU on February 9th in Boca. So we're doing the road trip down your way, Alan. Maybe if you want, you can watch a sport you do not watch normally live.
Wait, this is tennis, or who is this?
This is men's tennis ranked versus Friday at noon. So you can take off work, go to Miami, because you want to be in Miami on Friday, right?
Right. Why not?
Oh God, traffic there is so bad. And Sunday on February 9th in Boca. So that's probably maybe a little bit better for you. Now, this is funny. So softball is starting this week, and there's a typo that it was my typo because I'm in work mode at times. That said software starts this week, but that is not what is happening. Softball is starting this week. The women are playing a lot of games. A lot. How many? I think it's actually 7 or 8, which is amazing because they're starting this week versus CSU Bakersfield and versus number 12 Georgia this Thursday, February 6th at 3:30 and 6 p.m. respectively in Orlando. And all these games are in Orlando. Sorry, 6 games are in Orlando because they have 4 more games. It's day after day after day. It's basically from Thursday to Sunday, there are 6 games the women are going to play. So in a row, we're going to go NC State on Friday at 4:30 p.m. We're going to go Illinois on Saturday at 5 p.m. in both James Madison and Illinois again on Sunday, February 9th at 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. respectively. Lots and lots and lots of softball happening. And if you like... I had to internally pause myself. If you like watching softball and baseball, great. Softball is coming up soon too. And we are starting off as we usually do versus Siena. Usually those 14-0, 14-2 games. The weekend series starts on Valentine's Day, which is what every woman wants to be at, a UCF baseball game. So, and truth be told, that's my birthday weekend too. And unfortunately, I will not be attending any of the baseball games, even though I kind of wouldn't mind. So we have a lot of sports in the spring happening. Most of the spring sports are doing pretty good. Women's basketball notwithstanding. They also kind of start in the fall, but I don't know what you want to talk about there. Fall sports, not that great this year. Spring sports, doing all right.
Yeah, absolutely. They are doing all right. So I think overall, I guess maybe outside of football, obviously, and women's basketball, feels like overall better all around. Maybe not, I would say probably exceeding expectations to a degree. We'll see how everything closes out. I mean, UCF men's basketball, if they can just make the tournament, I think that makes year 2 in the Big 12 as a whole for UCF athletics a success. I mean, that's a big, big accomplishment considering that UCF has made the big dance a grand total of 5 times in its entire history. If you can do that in year 2 in arguably the best basketball conference in America, that's impressive. So, if we can finish the spring strong with that, that would be awesome.
All right. I know we're nearing the end and there is something else big going on this weekend, so I might as well shout it out and talk and ask if the Chiefs and the Eagles are playing in the Superb Owl, right? And
the big game?
The big game is happening on February 9th at 6:30 p.m. Do you want to do a who's going to win?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure. Easy for me. I hate the Eagles. As a Giants fan, I can't. As a Giants fan, if they take Saquon Barkley and win a freaking Superb Owl for it, I am going to be so disappointed in the entirety of the Giants staff. That's
one of the biggest bag fumbles of all time, losing Saquon.
Well, let's not talk about Luka and AD.
Well, I was just gonna say that's like a basketball, that is, yeah, but I mean football, oh my god, that is I mean I don't know how many times I've seen that clip now of the Giants GM basically
yeah.
essentially just admitting he's going to lowball them and go test the market. I mean, come on, man.
No,
I mean,
it's
at the same time, I don't know if Saquon would have had that type of year in New York, though. I mean,
no,
Philadelphia's
because
offense is just clearly a lot better. So
offensive line is nowhere where it needs to be.
right.
In New York,
But his talent is just that's what he can do in this type. Not every running back could do what he's doing in the Eagles offense either on the flip side,
And Noah's a Giants fan too. The scrolls on the bottom are great. It's true. And so the Chiefs have to win, and since I see no one agrees with me, the Chiefs have to win. As much as I don't necessarily want the Chiefs to win, the Chiefs have to win, and since the NFL is rigged anyway, it's probably what's going to happen, right?
Well, Chiefs feel like that team that it's just like it doesn't like they remind me a little bit of some of Tom Brady's Patriots teams. I'll tell you why. Like Tom Brady had some teams where the offense, like skill position wise, was just god awful, and that's how it feels right now with the Chiefs. Like besides Kelsey, who's having, I would say, a down year or he's older, whatever. I mean, come on, they lost Rashee Rice. They have essentially no receiver. Yeah, they have a very old Andre Hopkins. Like they have a very old Kareem Hunt. Like their skill positions are kind of crap. Like, cause I'm thinking like fantasy wise, I really don't want any Chiefs, maybe other than like Kelsey. Even Mahomes hasn't been like amazing, but it just feels like it doesn't matter. He's too good. Andy Reid's too good. They've won 2 chips in a row. It just, I mean, first of all, it's a loss for America. Eagles.
You know what? No one. Come on. No, you can pop back in. These scrolls are too long. We're out. If you want to pop on in, you can. And you've got some good points here. But yeah, I agree. It's just kind of this. We're live, and B, wait, I see dead people. Dun 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 dun. Bust it on the beat.
He can't win again, because if he does, no QB will ever be able to do anything without being compared to Mahomes. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the rhetoric. I'm sick of Josh Allen doing everything in his power to beat the refs, and he can't. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
But he's like the next Brady. I mean, like we could sit here and talk about the refs and all that, and I get it. There were some bad calls, but look, he's won 3 chips for a reason. I don't think it's purely on the backs of
the
referees.
The other ones, no. But this season has been insane with like the
it's annoying. I'm sick of it. I wanted. And the crazy thing, you don't see. I mean, there's a reason why this would be the first three-peat in the history of the NFL. That stuff just does not happen in football like it does in basketball or other sports. So, my prediction is the Chiefs because of course they're going to freaking win, because no one wants them to win, so they're going to win. That's my logic, and I'm sticking with it.
That's like Cowboys in the 80s and Giants at some point in the 90s. I don't know if he went into the Giants shirt, Noah, but yeah, it's so frustrating. And this thing that you kidding me? God. Oh man. If you're listening to this on a radio, or some type
I'm wearing this incognito to a
New York
themed superb owl party.
Well, here's the thing. I will say this. As much as I hate to say it, the Eagles have run roughshod over everyone. It hasn't really even been games, to be honest. It's kind of like Ohio State, like just blowing the bejesus out of Oregon, and just running through the entire playoff. Like it's just So we'll see what happens. And it's like it's interesting because Tyreek Hill. Just imagine if Tyreek Hill was still on this team. We wouldn't have this conversation. They would probably just win. But that's the thing. They don't have that. They don't have the depth of wide receiver, like you're saying, Alan. And on top of that, I know Kelsey is Kelsey, and he's getting older, and there's nothing wrong with that. I actually think because they've had so many issues or tweaks to the offensive line, he's had to block a heck of a lot more than being the wide receiver he normally is. Like, he's not in the slot all the time anymore. Like, he's actually doing tight end work and still almost got 1,000 yards. So I think a lot of people want to knock Kelsey because the pure numbers aren't there, those who are like fantasy focused or whatever. But I don't think that's the main reason. And I don't think Taylor's a reason either. I think he's just having to do other tight end work he hasn't had to do for a long time. And his numbers are suffering for it, but the proof is in the pudding, and they're winning games.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Except for against Allen.
yeah, like Kelsey's still Kelsey. It just reminds me so much of like when Brady's like skill position players. I think it was more towards the end, like when they played like his last Super Bowl or two. It's just like, you got a guy, you got like a Gronk, and this is what he feels here. You got like a Kelsey who's still probably pretty good, maybe not the peak of his powers, but then it's not like they have Tyreek Hill anymore. I mean, like who's their their third and fourth receivers, like a rookie Xavier Worthy, McCole Hardman, like Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, it's these guys that are past their prime.
Yeah,
it's just it's like, so it's funny. But look, they're probably going to win. I don't want the Eagles to win, but I really don't want the Chiefs to win. So I'm just going to root for the Eagles because I have to.
Agreed, and that's why I bought this shirt.
I just can't.
$18 on the NFL.
It's funny. I just can't. I can't. And it's hard. It's just. Yeah, I know. It's Wes Welker is not walking through that door. But that's just. I do think you're right. No, I feel like at this point, if the Chiefs win, you're going to have this, Mahomes compared to Brady, compared to Mahomes, it's going to be maybe a 1A, 1B. I mean, Brady is one more.
My biggest gripe is that this year, more than any year, the Chiefs have done minimal to win these games. Like the absolute bare minimum. And they've somehow skated by with a win through some weird call or through some weird mishap or through some weird something. They skate by, and then all of a sudden, Mahomes is the greatest QB to ever touch grass. Like, it's ridiculous. I can't. And then, like, in the next week, the commentators will be talking about Josh Allen or Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson, and they're doing amazing things, and they're like, this looks like something we see from Mahomes. It's like, no, it's not. Shut up. He looks insane this year. He looks a shadow of his former self. Kelsey has looked geriatric this whole season, besides up until the playoffs. Like, it's I don't know. Yeah. It's just
Kelsey has actually had the high in yards receiving 4 times this year, but I won't get into that. But look at who they're beating. Okay, Baltimore. I get it. Cincinnati was a shell of themselves as well, and they barely got past them. Atlanta, Los Angeles, New Orleans, Las Vegas, Tampa Bay, Denver. These are not all great teams. They're first really good team, and they're not winning by more than 10 points. First decent team they hit was Josh Allen.
Hold out these
wins
all year.
If you give the Bengals a defense that isn't a JV high school team, they win the entire AFC, hands down.
Yeah.
Him and Brady are the only ones to knock Mahomes out of the playoffs.
I love that stat.
I love that stat too.
It is pretty insane, but they really didn't play anyone, and they lost all their preseason games, but who cares about that anymore? But again, Houston, I wouldn't say got robbed, but Houston was a tight game that they should have had, maybe not have won. The Buffalo game, that was horrible.
Ridiculous.
It's just absolutely horrible.
The world wanted Bills v. Washington.
I feel, God, I don't want the Eagles to win, but I feel like they're going to win. Okay, enough superb owl. I just think we were only an hour in, and it's big enough, the football. I don't think any UCF player is on either team.
No, I checked that before the show. Unfortunately, UCF put out a graphic when the playoffs started. It was Tylen, here, I'll tell you who it was. They're all eliminated at this point, but it was Tylen Grable, who was on the Bills, the offensive lineman who's actually a rookie, who just got drafted by them in the 6th round last year. You had Tremon Boris Brash, who was on the Chargers. You had Shaquille Griffin on the Vikings. You had Brandon Johnson on the Steelers, and you had Alex Ward on the Rams. So Tylen Grable was only one that made it, to the Final Four there. But yeah, we're not going to unfortunately have any Knights in this year's Superb Owl.
Yeah. I think we could actually say the term, but I just like calling
it. We definitely cannot.
We cannot.
We don't have advertisers or whatever. I don't even understand why you can't say it. I don't
because they will crack down and delete the entire thing. It's like
who?
The NFL.
It
can't be said in any video.
Isn't it free advertising for that? Like, I don't like.
It's technically, but they have no say in it, which is why.
Yeah.
Who has no say in it?
It's advertising for them, but they don't get a check from the video, which is why they don't allow it.
We don't get a check from the
video. Well,
I was like, what are they going to sue us for?
What do you think?
Or something?
Do you think I have like a tank top on and like I'm making a lot of money having this fun conversation? No.
So can you pay them to say it? Like, when we see the Bud Light ads, can they say
I'm sure it would cost a lot more than any of us could supply for this channel.
Not us, but I'm saying, can brands say it if they're paying, like if they're on a Superb Owl halftime or just commercial during the game?
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen a ton of commercials use the word.
Yeah, but you're probably paying
the S word.
The SB word.
Podcast Journal. Can I talk about the Superb Owl on my podcast? This is 4 years ago. I'm going to watch the game. There's fair use and blah, 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 blah. I don't know.
Well, I guess, I kind of just want to keep saying Superb Owl. So
I am a big fan of owls, and I really think that the Washington Commanders should change their name to Owls because they're really superb. So I don't know. It's whatever. On that note, you think we're done? Is this?
I think we're done.
I think we're done. Too much owling. We're bird watching at this point.
Yeah, I think that will.
Roger, hold on. Roger is sick, and he's chiming in what has happened to our podcast. Well,
there was a lot of UCF news, but we needed to talk about the Superb Owl.
Yes, the reality is that if Alan is not going to watch tennis, how much can we really talk about it, right? Let's be fair. So what has happened is we're gonna turn into the next, I don't know, not the term I want to use. I don't even know the dude with the tank top who has like a podcast who ESPN like can't get rid of or whatever. Roger turned in. He just tuned in, and this is what you heard. But that's what you get, Roger. If you're here at the top of the hour, you would hear us talking about our amazing tennis team and our softball team and the 500 games they're going to play this week and when baseball's going on. But no, Roger, you decided to come in an hour and 15. And we're Superb Owling.
Superb Owls.
Yeah. We're just talking about bird watching and some football. I don't know why we're talking about that together. So, and this is how we're going to end the show, I think, on this note. Alan, you want to take it away?
Yeah, well, it was quite the ending for sure. As always, guys, follow us on Instagram. Obviously, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Continue to tune into our live podcast here. We'll be back next Monday, hopefully with the entire team. So with that, like, subscribe, and charge
on. Well, now we're not. There's no go nights and a charge on.
I know. I completely did not put the go nights part in there. I just said charge.